In 15 days, Karol Nawrocki will be sworn in as President of Poland. The President-elect is putting together his office staff. In an interview with TV Trwam, he revealed that its head will be Zbigniew Bogucki, a member of the Law and Justice Party.
To z jednej strony bardzo doświadczony urzędnik państwowy.
On the one hand, he is a very experienced civil servant, a very good governor of Western Pomerania, but above all, he is a lawyer, attorney and prosecutor. And we know that the work of the office, these legislative initiatives and legislation in general are very important. He is a man who was deeply involved in my election campaign with great efficiency and effectiveness. He is also a man of values. Immediately after the swearing-in ceremony, bills prepared by the President will be submitted to the Sejm, which will be the implementation of campaign promises, including, among others, the Central Transportation Port. A very good word. There will be a legislative offensive. Karol Nawrocki promised this offensive during the campaign, and now he will implement it as President of the Republic of Poland. My role in this is also to ensure that these bills are well prepared, so that this offensive is really very, very dynamic. And we will be checking whether this government is on the side of the Polish people, whether Poland and the Polish people come first or not. The future head of President Nawrocki's office enjoys a good reputation, even among politicians from the ruling coalition. I know Mr. Zbigniew Bogucki. I think he is a sensible guy, and I think he will be a good support for President Nawrocki. Zbigniew Bogucki's deputy will be Adam Andruszkiewicz.
To mimo młodego wieku, bo to jeden z najzdolniejszych polityków.
Despite his young age, he is one of the most talented politicians of the younger generation and already a very experienced parliamentarian, with 10 years and 3 terms in the Polish Sejm. In his youth, he was president of the All Polish Youth, and thus associated with nationalist circles, which is also important to me. Above all, Adam Andruszkiewicz was responsible for the success of the campaign on social media. He is also a man whose energy, ingenuity and love for Poland will influence the work of the entire office of the president. During the campaign, Karol Nawrocki, unlike the government, had no problem communicating online. It will be my natural role to continue this online communication for the president. This is an extremely responsible task because it is very clear that with each passing year, with each election campaign, social media is gaining in importance in terms of direct interaction between voters and a given politician. And here too, I think that Karol Nawrocki is perfectly suited to be, one might say, the most communicative politician in Poland on the internet. How does the Civic Coalition assess the future leadership of the president's office? Their views are not surprising.
Jarosław Kaczyński, Prawo i Sprawiedliwość chce mieć po prostu pod kontrolą kancelarię.
Jarosław Kaczyński and Law and Justice simply want to control the president's office, hence the appointment of Mr. Bogucki. However, looking at the nomination of Mr. Andruszkiewicz, it is terrifying to see someone who, as the leader of the All Polish Youth, preached extremely divisive slogans at rallies. Mr. Andruszkiewicz is certainly a shady figure in politics. Let's leave the dark threads aside. Karol Nawrocki, as he announced during the campaign, wants to be the president of all Poles, including those living outside our country, hence a minister for the Polish diaspora and Poles abroad. Agnieszka Jędrzejczak will be the minister.
To jest osoba, która była dyrektorem biura.
She is a person who was the director of the Office of International Cooperation in the Institute of National Remembrance. She cared for the good name of Poland and Poles on all continents. She talked about General Anders' army and General Maciek's army. Above all, she is a person with excellent contacts with Poles around the world. So I am also glad that she will complement the shape of my office. We have already met the new head of international policy who held this position in 2023. He is former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs Marcin Przydacz. He is expected to have a difficult relationship with Minister of Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski. Over the past year and a half, he has not really shown that he is ready for this cooperation. He has paralyzed the Polish Foreign Service. We will try to fix this in the near future so that Poland is truly represented at the highest professional level, because today the Polish Foreign Service is clearly falling short. Marcin Przydacz is to ensure that, given the policies of the Tusk and Sikorski governments, the Americans do not reduce their military involvement in our country. The future head of the International Policy Office recently returned from the United States. Everyone, from the White House to the Pentagon to the State Department, expressed their incomprehension as to why Poland does not have an ambassador in Washington, a key capital city. Mr. Radosław Sikorski is to blame for this situation, so the sooner he withdraws these poor candidates, the better for Poland. I had my own individual meetings with President Trump's administration at a sufficiently high level, and we are already establishing these relations for the future. The rest of President Karol Nawrocki's office staff will be announced in the coming days. The name of Marcin Możdżonek has appeared on the list of possible collaborators, who is expected to become an ambassador to President Nawrocki. Is it true that you will be an advisor to President Karol Nawrocki? Being an advisor to the President of Poland is a great honor. I must admit that the appearance of this information in the media was surprising. The President-elect is now building his team, as we can all see, and from what I know, he will present his team in the coming days, so there is no point in speculating. In a few days, we will find out whether it is true or just a journalistic hoax. This refutes the theory that Karol Nawrocki would be president only at the behest of Law and Justice Party chairman Jarosław Kaczyński. The president has spoken to a wide variety of people. Among them are people from the Confederation, certainly. I myself have spoken to the president-elect. Sławomir Mencen has met the president-elect. Of course, the president-elect has the right to offer everyone the opportunity to advise him. However, I think we will find out what the final decisions will be after the inauguration. And the inauguration will be on the 6th of August. General Valery Zaluzhny was the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's defense during the first phase of the full-scale Russian invasion. However, President Volodymyr Zelensky transferred him abroad as Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom. Today, opinion polls show Zaluzhny as the most trusted political figure in Ukraine. 71% of Ukrainians polled trust Zaluzhny, followed by the head of military intelligence, Kirylo Budanov, with a trust rating of over 50%. President Volodymyr Zelensky comes third in this ranking, trusted by less than half of his countrymen. General Zaluzhny has a very good track record when it comes to the war in Ukraine. His service during the war is considered competent both at home and abroad. The second thing that may explain this trust is Donald Trump's support for Zaluzhny, expressed on several occasions. The Trump administration values Zaluzhny, but Volodymyr Zelensky has a different opinion. This is what he said almost a year and a half ago, on the day he removed the general from command of the army and sent him outside Ukraine's borders.
Відверто поговорили сьогодні про те, що потребує змін в армії.
I am openly saying that we need changes in the army, urgent changes. I had suggested to General Zaluzhny that he remain in the Ukrainian diplomatic corps, and I would be grateful if he agrees. But at a time of full-scale war, Zelensky's political games did not sit well with his countrymen.
Weeks passed and the speculation about the worsening relationship between the two only grew, with the broader understanding that the president saw the general as a political threat. But why would a country's civilian and military leaders be worried about politics during a full-scale war? Elections in Ukraine have been cancelled for as long as martial law continues, as per the constitution.
A struggle for influence and survival has begun in the upper echelon of the Ukrainian government. Volodymyr Zelensky has decided to remove from his circle the military commander who was gaining prominence. He has become a victim of internal political games in Ukraine and has been sent as an ambassador to the United Kingdom. This could be called a golden cage, meaning that it is a fairly good position for such a man, but one that distances him from the course of events in Ukraine. We do not know whether Zaluzhny had any presidential ambitions, but after this move from Zelensky, it is very likely that he does. And he is already building his position as a diplomat. It would be difficult for Ukraine to fight the enemy without the help of the West. Yes, we stood up to Russia from the very beginning, but when NATO countries realized that we were facing a full-scale war, they supported us. Volodymyr Zelensky's term of office theoretically expired over a year ago. Many Ukrainians wonder whether he still represents the majority of society, as trust polls give pause for thought. President Zelensky's term in office expired long ago. At the same time, new elections are not being organized because it is difficult to organize them for obvious reasons. The war is continuing and is dragging on, and there are no indications that it will end in the coming months. During wartime, according to the Ukrainian constitution, elections may not be held. In the first phase of the war, Zelensky was a symbolic figure, which means that his decision to remain in Kiev certainly had an impact on public morale. But as the war dragged on, mistakes began to emerge, political mistakes, in terms of appointments and corruption issues. The war is dragging on and the public is tired. It is also difficult to see any hope in the peace talks with Russia. The third round of negotiations will start tomorrow in Istanbul.
The United Kingdom is reeling from the scandal surrounding the evacuation of British troops and diplomatic personnel from Afghanistan in 2021. A year after the Western coalition forces fled the country taken over by the Taliban, a British official sent an email with an attachment containing the data of nearly 19,000 people, mainly Afghans who had cooperated with the British services, but also British intelligence agents and their informants. As a result, London organized a secret rescue operation, the details of which have just come to light. The disastrous evacuation from Kabul in August 2021 will forever be remembered as one of the US Armed Forces' darkest days. Chaos reigned as the Biden administration struggled to keep up. Afghans who had helped track down and eliminate terrorist militias for years were abandoned to the mercy of the Taliban. Among them were Western intelligence contacts, translators, informants, as well as their families. The British, the main force supporting the United States in Afghanistan, decided to compile a list of those whom they had failed to evacuate from the country before the Taliban captured Kabul. And this is where the story of possibly the greatest ever blunder by British intelligence services begins.
In February 2022, 10 months after the then Defence Secretary Ben Wallace introduced the Afghan relocations and assistance policy, 6 months after the fall of Kabul, a defence official emailed an Arab caseworking file outside of authorised government systems. ARAP, as the House knows, is the resettlement scheme that this country established for Afghan citizens who worked for or with our UK armed forces over the combat years of Afghanistan. Now, this official mistakenly believed that they were sending the names of 150 applicants. However, the spreadsheet in fact contained personal information associated to 18,714 Afghans who had applied either to the ex gratia or the ARAT scheme on or before the 7th of January 2022.
Worse still, UK authorities were unaware of the mishap until August 2023, when excerpts from the list began to appear on social media. It was then that the evacuation procedure, which is supposed to remain a secret from the world, was launched in a panic.
Many might find the government's current position somewhat surprising. They initially rushed to court to obtain an injunction, then a super injunction, to prevent the disclosure of this information by the media, precisely because of the risk that it posed to those affected. Now, somewhat curiously, some may consider, they're saying, well, there isn't a risk. Well, there are many credible media reports of those that have been persecuted by the Taliban in Afghanistan because of the help they provided to international forces, including UK, Australian and US forces.
The British government's disclosure of the information was a move ahead of the publication of several editorial offices that have been working on the subject for many months. According to journalists' findings, the UK government secretly smuggled Afghans across borders and transported them to the British Isles, offering them asylum. Almost 5,000 people have already been transferred, and another 6,000 are being prepared for evacuation. However, what shocks the public most is the cost of this operation, estimated at over £800 million.
So why don't we go through his end-of-term scorecard? Yeah. The economy is contracting. Inflation, highest in the G7. Unemployment, up every month under this government. Spending, out of control. Borrowing costs, more expensive than Greece. And this is just the first year, Mr. Speaker. The Labour Party should be ashamed of what it is doing to the country.
The British government's disclosure of the information was a move ahead of the publication of several editorial offices that have been working on the subject for many months. According to journalists' findings, the UK government secretly smuggled Afghans across borders and transported them to the British Isles, offering them asylum. Almost 5,000 people have already been transferred, and another 6,000 are being prepared for evacuation. However, what shocks the public most is the cost of this operation, estimated at over £800 million.
Cheap, fast, and unregulated, shopping on Temu and Shein is breaking popularity records, mainly thanks to very attractive prices. However, the products offered there also cause a lot of controversy, especially due to the materials and dyes used. In terms of quality, I am not at all satisfied with the products they recommend. The quality is getting better and better. They are not the worst, but they are not the best either. Shein states in a special announcement that all suppliers are required to comply with strict safety control rules in line with European standards. Last year, the platform conducted over 2 million product safety tests, and in 2025, it plans to invest an additional $15 million in testing and compliance systems. The boom in online shopping is a real headache for traditional stationery stores. Customers tempted by low prices, convenience, and a huge selection online are increasingly bypassing physical stores. The stores we know from the street are feeling this very acutely. Customer numbers and turnover are falling, and survival is becoming increasingly difficult. Those that are still operating are frantically looking for ways to adapt to the new reality. In a special letter to the European Commission, 6 EU countries are demanding enforcement of regulations against Chinese online stores. For years, the European Union has been losing the race for competitiveness to powers such as China and the US. This is a serious threat to Polish companies and the entire European economy. A report was recently published that clearly pointed out the mistakes of the current economic policy pursued by the European Commission. If the EU does not change its approach to global giants and revise its climate policy, it will lose even more. However, at the same time as Brussels is investigating Chinese giants, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is preparing to visit Beijing. Together with the head of the European Council, they are to discuss with the Chinese president the deepening of trade and climate cooperation. So what is really going on? Europe has long since moved towards cooperation with communist China, forgetting that without its own production, it becomes dependent on external supply chains. Wanting to spite America, it decided to come to an agreement with China. The result? It is losing economically and trying to save itself with environmental issues. But this again is a double-edged sword, because if Europe starts producing, it will have to export goods by sea, and again, someone will accuse it of affecting the climate. Meanwhile, things are also heating up in the Polish e-commerce market. The media has reported on the growing conflict between InPost and Allegro. Customers have started asking why the option of delivery to a parcel locker is disappearing for some products. InPost responded directly. Recently, we have been receiving more and more questions, such as why can't I see InPost delivery on Allegro, or why can't I choose delivery via Paczkomat? Well, it's not us disappearing, it's Allegro changing the delivery options for many products. We are still ready for your parcels, and we know how much you like receiving them via Paczkomat. At the same time, InPost CEO Rafał Brzoska is announcing another earthquake. The classic online shopping model may soon be a thing of the past, all because of the development of artificial intelligence. AI, which will search, compare, and buy products for us, may completely redefine the way we shop.
Aleksandra Gołda, Republika.